Morning, fish givers. Cam here from the fishroom.co.nz. Done it again. We've made it through to another Friday. Woo! Let's do coffee. That is a very good coffee. Oh, I'm going to enjoy that cup for sure. All right, so unfortunately today there is no John. It is just me, so you've got to put up with me. I'm sorry. Just bring the microphone a little bit closer so I can hear me properly, because I can hear the noise outside and it's quite loud. So because there's no John today, we're going to go back to the classic format of I've written on my notebook and we're going to read through some notes. The topic we did have for today was going to be water testing. And I think I'll still have a wee conversation about that, because I do think it's quite important. So we will run through a little bit of the water testing and the stuff that I had. We'll go through that at some point today as well. So good morning, Rochelle. How are you doing? And Brian, how you doing? Sultans, hello everybody. I hope everyone's well, and I hope everyone is enjoying the Friday, if it is Friday for you. So first and foremost, I'll give you an update on the corridors. So we had last week the albino and the bronze corys have a spawn. I harvested all the eggs. None of them survived. So that is just a very clear show on how much I'm not a fish breeder, and I've never called myself a fish breeder. I never will, probably never will, sorry. So unfortunately, none of them survived. They all molded over. The bronze corys spawned again during the week. I didn't harvest them. I'm going to pay a little more attention. I'm going to try and trigger them sometime this week coming up, and I'm going to try and harvest their eggs properly and get that going properly. So, unfortunately this time around, none of the corys survived, or none of the eggs survived. So we'll try again next week, see how we go. It's all small steps. I think focusing on some of these more simpler corridors is a good option for me to begin with, and probably some of the more simpler tetras or danios or something like that. So it's all a learning curve. So I hope you're all going to enjoy laughing at me as I make mistakes along the way, but I'll continue to keep everyone informed. So today I've decided to release another podcast from the Aquarium Frenzy range. I was having massive issues. I still am having massive issues with the editing software that I use. It wasn't allowing me to slice in a introduction onto the podcast, which was frustrating me. So for a few weeks, I just didn't release one, because I was like, nah, it's below what it needs to be. I'm not releasing it. To be fair, the introduction was very short and sweet anyway. It was just me saying who we were speaking to, briefly what we spoke about, and then getting into the interview. But I've decided that I think we're better off just releasing them than not releasing them. So all I've done is just cut off the initial conversation, which is this part here, and then gone straight to the interview when we've had a guest on. So for those of you that don't know, we have a podcast on Spotify. Basically, it's the coffee dates we have when we have a guest. So it's just a recording of that. So if anyone wants to just listen to that, you can find it on Spotify. But today's guest, we have got Rebecca. Rebecca came in at the start of the year. We spoke about plecostomuses and a little bit of feeding of our aquarium fish and that sort of stuff. So it was actually a really, really interesting conversation. I got a lot out of it, and I spoke to a lot of people after the fact, and they said they got a lot out of it. So that'll be ready to go once I get off this live video. We'll get that all ready and live for everybody. You can also find it on the back issues of stuff on YouTube as well if you want to watch it as well. Good morning, Maxie. How you doing? Speaking of podcasts, the Three Idiots Talk Aquariums podcast was also released on a Sunday. Again, you can find it on YouTube under the Three Idiots Talk Aquarium, or on Spotify. This week we were speaking about aquarium medications, the limitations we have here in New Zealand, and some other options that you can use that aren't medications. For those of you that aren't in New Zealand, we're very, very limited here on the medications that we can get, what we can use, antifungal treatments and all that kind of stuff. So, that was the main conversation about that, and then how we can work around that, and what you can use, and hopefully preventatives and that sort of stuff. So it was more of an informative conversation as opposed to a bit of a light-hearted one, although there was a bit of laughing, a bit of bantering and stuff like that, as there always is. So yeah, that was the release that we did this week for the Three Idiots podcast. So Maxie's preparing for the AGM for the FNZAS. Is that coming up this weekend, or is it coming up in a couple of weeks' time? So for the people that don't know, the FNZAS is the Federation New Zealand Aquatic Society. It's the overarching, probably lack of a better terms, the governing body, but lack of a better terms for the industry here. It's based on hobbyists and having an opinion and a view, and hopefully a helping hand for what we do in the sense of how aquariums are kept here, the fish they're allowed in, and all that sort of stuff. So it's been around for a very, very long time. I would say a vast majority of people that are in clubs are then involved in the FNZAS as well, because the FNZAS is, again, the overarching agency, lack of a better term, that look after the clubs as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It sounds like the AGM is this weekend. So I've been to a couple of the AGMs when I was a member of the FNZAS and a member of clubs. It always seems like a good time. Basically, a few people that are interested in aquariums sitting around talking about aquariums. So what more could you want? This week, the happy-go-lucky display tank in the shop got a wee boost of CO2. So I got my bottle filled up, which was good. So that's been in there. I'm just dialing it into the appropriate amount at the moment. So that tank, the idea behind it is all happy-go-lucky fish. There's some sunset platies, and there is sunset platies, green fire tetras, and I'm probably going to put some autosynclus and some pygmy corridors in there as well, and that'll complete the setup for that. It's full of anubias, cryptocorynes, a couple of small sword plants, some dwarf sagittaria, all sort of low light liking plants. The idea of it is that it's just a happy-go-lucky tank. Anybody should be able to grow these plants. None of them are overly demanding. Anybody should be able to keep these fish. None of them are overly demanding, and it should just be a nice, happy vibe and nice and casual. So yeah, I'm enjoying how that's developing. I'll try and get a video up over the next week or so, and so people can sort of watch how that develops as well. There's still a couple more species of plants that I want to put in as well to finish it off. Just a little bit dubious on moving some of them at the moment. They're not a little bit fragile, not quite there. So we will see how we go. Would the FNZAS work with MPI as to what's allowed in? I suspect not. I do know they work with MPI. They have discussions with MPI about as to what's allowed in. I wouldn't have thought so. Max is obviously still watching, and I believe she is the president or the vice president of the FNZAS. So she might be able to answer that question a little bit more in the chat. So we'll see how that goes. Push the wrong button, man. So we sold out of all our Tropica tissue culture plants that we had. They were only in stock for about 2 weeks. We will be putting another order in next week, which I'm looking forward to. So there are general response for that. Everyone that's bought them has been really, really happy with them. Most people have been very shocked at how many plants they've been getting in a pot. I think it's a great change for the way the New Zealand hobby is going. It's been far too long we haven't had this sort of plant system, so it's exciting that we do have them. Yeah, so for those of you in New Zealand that aren't aware, tissue culture plants have just recently been released into New Zealand. Fantastic thing about them is you're getting incredible value for money. Instead of paying like $15 for one plant, you're paying $30 for a pot, and you get about 10 or so plants in it. So value-wise, it's phenomenally good. Also, there's no chance of like algae and pests and all that kind of stuff, which is a bonus. But for me, I believe it's the value that it really makes them work out quite well. So I'm really happy that they sold so quickly. It was a little bit of a trial. I was a little bit concerned that they might not, but they did. So we'll get another round of them, and we'll just continue on with them, and hopefully they continue to be supported by everybody, and we'll just continue rocking and rolling with them. So that's the plan, at least. Last week we had Fish Science come in as well. We have been out of stock of Fish Science for a little while. For me, it's one of the better pre-prepared dry foods that you can get on the New Zealand market. Ingredients wise, fantastic. Fish seems to take it really happily, and growth and colour improves with it quite dramatically with it. I feed out the Corridor tablets to the cories. It was almost an instant notice of spawning straight after that. Might have been coincidental, but within a day or two of beginning to feed that back out again, they started spawning, so it may not be coincidental either. But yeah, I'm a massive fan of it. I really like the worm pellet as well. I think it's a phenomenal product for things like loaches and other fish that really like chow down on and worms and stuff like that. So well and truly worth it if you're looking for a new food to try. I definitely encourage you to try the Fish Science. I think in combination with Fish Science, Rapashi, and some live food like brine shrimp is right up there as far as a quality mixture of food for everybody. Cool. All right. So Max has answered. So they're a stakeholder for MPI. When the list of ornamental fish was created, they partially used our breeding registry to sort it out. We also help prove fish have been here, but we are not in a position to add new species due to the cost, which is absolutely fair and it makes sense. We do give new feedback when new legislation is entered based on the voice of our capitated, basically for the members that have paid their subscriptions. So I hope that answers your question, Rochelle. FNZAS does do a lot of stuff. They for the hobby in general. I feel that over the last 10 years or so, since the internet has become the internet, unfortunately, they've become a little bit less relevant in the eyes of most people. However, if they were aware of what was actually going on behind the scenes and the work that the FNZAS have previously done and will probably continue to do, I think people would find them more relevant than what they really are. As I said before, I used to be a member of the FNZAS. I used to be a member of the local club. Unfortunately, I'm not a member of either anymore, mainly because the local clubs have their meeting on a night that is just absolutely unattainable for me. My partner already has a commitment on the same time, so I can't, unfortunately, attend the meetings. If they were on different nights, I would be a member and I would be involved in that still. So that's where that's at. I think clubs are very valuable, although they seem to be dying off a little bit at the moment, unfortunately. And with a smaller population base like New Zealand, it makes them even more tricky to continue on. But yeah, that is what it is. So yeah, the FNZAS have got the AGM this week. For those that are into plants, I'm very, very happy to say we've got some new plants that are coming through, not just the tissue culture stuff. I've got a couple of people that have been growing some Java ferns and that sort of stuff. I've always had a really relatively good constant supply of standard broadleaf Java fern, but I've never been able to get hold of Winterlove or needleleaf Java fern. However, that has changed, so I'm very happy with that. So obviously, I've got out the back here, I'm growing my own supply as well. But there's a couple of people that I talk to on a regular basis that are also growing plants, and they've been able to send me some. So I've got a couple of big bags of Winterlove and needleleaf Java fern at the moment. So we'll make them available on the website very, very soon. The Winterlove will be available by the end of today. The needleleaf hopefully tomorrow. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm hoping that we can continue to have a constant supply because there are a couple of plants that shouldn't be hard to find in New Zealand, but they are in the sense of they're a bit harder to find when it comes to the commercial side of it because no one's growing them commercially. So I'm pretty happy to have them rocking and rolling. Like I said, we'll get them up, ready to go. So if you are in the market for some new Java ferns, we're going to have you covered. So I'm really, really happy with that. So thank you for everybody there, or the two people that are growing. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can just continue to have a nice rolling supply of those three plants for everybody. Morning, Cam. How you doing, buddy? So they're looking at a solution to that, looking at having a Zoom account available for people who can't meet in person and allow clubs to use it also to run events there. So is that, I'm assuming that was in relation to people not being able to meet for meetings on a regular basis and clubs being not quite as relevant. So is this the FNZAS's way or attempt to try and be able to keep people relevant and keep people going and attending and being involved and having an opinion and having their thoughts and their ideas and stuff put forward to the overarching governing body. Is that how that is? Because that's kind of how that I've read that, and I hope that is the case. Someone's got trident. I don't have trident leaf. Feel free to share me some trident leaf if you are willing to do so. Cool. So earlier this week, for those of you that follow us on Facebook, you would have seen that I accidentally broke young Saf's aquarium, which I felt absolutely terrible for. For those of you that don't know, Saf comes in and does some work experience with us every Monday. He spends a couple hours here. So he helps out feeding the fish, cleaning all the tanks and stuff like that. And then hopefully towards the end of the day, we sort of carve out half an hour or so to do some work on his aquarium. So he's absolutely crazy about aquariums, which is great because he's in the right place when he comes in and does some work for us. So he saved up his money and he's bought himself a Blue Planet 150 litre tank. So they're like a 3-foot tank. Everything was going well. We'd set it all up. He'd cut his background for it and all that kind of stuff. Had it applied, and I realised that we hadn't put any foam or anything underneath the stand. So I went and got him a roll of foam. I moved the tank, and as I was putting it down, I dropped it on the concrete and cracked it. So I felt really, really bad for that. So I've gone out and bought him a new one that arrived yesterday. So when he comes in on Monday, we can get back onto it. So I'll put the backing paper back onto it for him. I'll cut some foam and put that on there before he gets here. So hopefully come Monday, we'll have a few updates on Saf's tank. We've got the substrate sitting here ready to go, so we'll put some of that in, and we've got his filter sitting here ready to go as well. So, we'll be I'll be able to have a conversation with Saf this week about cycling his aquarium and how the filter works and all the good stuff in that. So, he's an absolute sponge when it comes to learning stuff about aquariums. So, I'm looking forward to that, and I'll give everyone a few updates, and we can progress through. We've taken a few notes, and we've got an idea of what it is that he wants to do with his aquarium. Hopefully we can get what he wants in his head in front of him, and he can be happy with that. So fingers crossed. Good morning to the people that have just come in. Rebecca, how are you doing? And I agree, Rochelle. Those 150s are brilliant, and it's a shame that they don't make them slightly bigger, because as far as just a glass box aquarium goes, they are phenomenally good. Hi, Helen. Hope you're enjoying doing your water changes. And Maxine says, we don't set regulations or legislation, but we have our say when it's updated. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sorry if I said that you guys do set regulations and legislations. And Cam has popped up there. Is Trident the same as the mature broadleaf? I don't think so. I know the mature broadleaf does put little trident leaves out. I believe the trident leaf is a totally different variation of Java fern, much like the winter love and the broadleaf. Could be wrong, but that's my understanding. So, and I believe that the trident leaf isn't. I know the trident leaf is in New Zealand, but I'm 99% sure is a different variation of that plant altogether. Just cross a few things off so I don't get lost. While we're at it, if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please do it. Do that like thing and all that other good stuff. And if you haven't found us on Spotify, give that a go as well. I've done all that stupid stuff I don't like doing. We can move forward. A little while ago, we have started what is called an essentials range of products. It's basically stuff. Lame. Sorry, I was just reading the comment. So the essentials group of products is basically the stuff that I consider that we use as a hobbyist on a regular basis. Foods, fertilizers, dechlorinators, stuff like that, things that we consume and need to rebuy quite regularly. So at the start of the winter, which I know we're not quite in winter yet, but at the start of winter, I put a whole bunch of these together, and I knocked 20% off all of them just to try and make the costs of running your general aquariums a little bit cheaper for everybody over the winter time. So the plan for that is for it to last over the winter. And I also chose products that were the best selling in those particular categories. So I didn't pick products that I was trying to move on. I picked products that you, the hobbyists, were buying a lot of already, which told me that these are the products that you guys are using, these are the products you're consuming. So The Fish Science Flakes, one of them, Flourish XL and Flourish in the 250ml bottles are one of them. Seachem Prime, Serochlorix, the JBL Klugeline 7-pack balls are another one. I think there's a couple others. So on the website, it's under the essentials. So we've knocked 20% off until the end of the winter time. So I'm hoping that I'm hoping that that'll help a few people as winter comes in, because we all know it gets a little bit more pricey with the power costs and all that kind of stuff. So fingers crossed that can help everybody out a little bit more. What we got from Rebecca? Have you thought of interviewing Dr. Tim? He's been listening to his podcast, and it's interesting. I'm interested in freshwater marine biology. I have not. Is the podcast on Spotify by any chance? That's what I wrote down, so I will circle that, underline that, and I'll have a wee look, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you for the idea. If there's anybody that anyone would like to see us speak to and interview with, I'm more than happy to have that conversation with them. So if there is any guests or people in the industry that are doing cool stuff, or you've been following, or general hobbyists that you want to hear from, then please feel free to let me know, and I will be more than happy to try and accommodate that and get those people on. So that'll be a good time. Speaking of that, we've got the Garden of Eden coming on next week. So they're a small business in America. Interview with the Pope. So they're a small business from America, specializing mainly in shrimp, but they do fish as well. So that'll be a good time. Last time I spoke to them, I think they said like 500 aquariums or something stupid like that. So it's quite a large body of water that they're working with, which is kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you don't follow them or haven't heard of them, jump onto the YouTube channel, the Garden of Eden, and see what you think. Unfortunately, I'm not going to interview the Pope. However, someone from Aquahouse, yep, I have spoken to them. We're just trying to cement a date in, so fingers crossed that will happen sometime soon. There's some pretty cool stuff that they're doing. They're changing the hobby here in New Zealand for the good, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'm trying to get them once we knock in a date. That'll be fantastic. So yeah. And good morning, Silver. And yeah, that'll be cool too. I'll write that down as well. Yeah, that's a great option. See if I can find someone that's got a really big knowledge base on EB flights. So again, I think that'll be a very interesting conversation to have. So yeah. We released another blog today. Stop clicking your pen, Cam. We released another blog today. Today we based on working towards beginner hobbyists and people that basic mistakes that people make while beginning in the hobby. So that was released on our website today, so it's ready to be read. I'd love people's opinions on it. You can either comment on the blog itself, or we posted it on Facebook, so you can comment on that as well if you think my thoughts are wrong or we've forgotten some bits and pieces and stuff like that. So I can't exactly remember what the 5 things were off the top of my head. Overstocking was one of them. Not doing research was another one. Overfeeding was another one. Hey, look at me, I don't remember them all. There were a couple other ones. So hopefully it helps some people along the road getting into the hobby. Fingers crossed. And for the people that have been in it for a while, it might jog a few memories of what it was like becoming a new hobbyist. Because we've all made mistakes, and I'm sure we've all probably made all the mistakes that were in that list. So before I get on to the topic that we're going to talk about, which was water testing, I'm just throwing out a wee idea of something I've wanted to do on my website for a very, very long time. I've loved the idea of having a bibliography on the website for a very, very long time. Basically, this is a word that we use in our hobby on a regular basis. This is the meaning of it. I don't know if it's overly relevant to everybody, but I think it'd be quite a cool resource to have. So I'm umming and ahhing whether or not we should be doing this, or I should be doing this or not. Part of me wants to do it just because I want to tick a box that I've done, that I've a little project that I've wanted to do for a while. But if people aren't going to look at it and use it, then it seems a little bit pointless as well. So let me know your thoughts on that. It'll be an ever evolving thing. There'll always be new words and new terms coming out and that kind of stuff. So it's definitely something I'd like to begin with. It's an alphabetical list of words and terms we use and the meaning of them and stuff like that. So, epiphytes would be a prime example of being in there. A lot of people don't know what that word is. Throw it in there and away you go. So, let me know what you think of that. Bring back fish. I missed some questions up here. One question since you brought it up earlier. When you test your water, say done a nitrate, and ammonia, when are you meant to time the 5 minutes? I time once I've finished shaking the bottle. So I always start with nitrate because I know it takes the longest. So I do the nitrate test first, and then I go through the ammonia and the nitrate. Generally speaking, by the time you finish with the ammonia and the nitrite, that's about 5 minutes. So your nitrate's pretty close. Then give it a couple more minutes, and that's normally about where you are. I hope that helps. Do people who haven't started often come to you, or is it more people who have done a little already? So I actually had a completely new hobbyist come in yesterday, and I think I had one earlier in the week. So, I do get a lot of people coming into the shop that haven't kept aquariums before, or they're coming in, they haven't kept aquariums for sort of 10, 15 years type of scenario, and they're trying to get back in, and obviously things have changed in that time, and they're trying to learn. So, I think we do have a decent portion of new hobbyists or beginner level hobbyists that come into the shop. Not so much talking online, communicating, emailing, that sort of stuff, but in the shop there seems to be more people that come in and say, look, we've just started an aquarium, want to start an aquarium, new into keeping fish again, what can we do? This is my thoughts, my ideas. So, yeah. Good morning, Todd. How are you doing? Bring back the fish rooms A to Z daily alphabet. Doing stuff daily is a little bit tricky. It's a lot of work. We could possibly look at doing a letter of the week and having a few different things in the week. But A to Z is quite a significant amount of work. I would have to speak to John and see where his workload is to be able to get that going properly. But we could possibly do a letter of the week as an option. I'll speak to John about that. A to Z. Cool. And epiphytes, very hard to spell. You are correct. I would like to do the bibliography again just for myself. It's my own personal thing that I'd like to do, and so that we've done it and we've got it going on. But we'll see how we go. It's definitely been on my mind for a long time, and in the back end of the website, I've written aquarium bibliography and saved the folder, but haven't put anything in it. And I think I saved it about 2 years ago, so it's definitely been in my mind to do. So we'll see how we go. That's not ideal. Losing all your water. That's not ideal at all. Yeah, I didn't make too much of a big song and dance about getting it. I think I only made one post and I sent an email out. So maybe you need to jump on the email list to find out that we've got tissue cultures. Definitely will be ordering some more in next week. I think they said they'll have some in stock. So we'll be putting an order in for that. So we'll get some more in. So as long as the response continues to go and people are happy to buy them, we'll continue to stock them, I guess. Okay, so what I do want to talk about is water testing, and this has been spurred on by this product here. So I bought this product earlier in the week, bought it in earlier in the week for me to test and see what it's like. So for those of you who can't see, it's the JBL Pro Scan. On the surface, I was really, really excited about it. It's got all the bells and whistles. Basically, it's a paper strip test, just like any other one. And then you dip your water in, you put it on here like you normally would, and then you scan it to your smartphone, and in a minute's time, it gives you all this information about what your aquarium's doing. So on the surface, I thought that was fantastic. People love gadgets. People like being able to track stuff. People like having digital stuff and solutions and things like that. So on principle, I thought it was brilliant. I was a little bit dubious about whether or not it was going to be accurate or not. So I tested the Happy-Go-Lucky tank 3 times with this, and I also cracked open a brand new API master test kit and did that first as well. So the positives of the scan is that the pH was completely rock solid all the way through. Continued to tell me that I had chlorine in the water, which surprised me because the tank had been running for several weeks. The nitrite, unfortunately, went up and down on every 3 tests, and there was a significant amount of nitrite in the API test. The nitrate, although it went up and down, it was still what I would consider close enough to what the API test was showing to say that's clear enough. So I was a little bit dubious about it, and I'm a little bit disappointed because I was hoping that it was going to be far more accurate, because I would love to take this product on. I took photos outside, I took photos inside, and nothing kind of made it clear. So I'm really disappointed. I really wanted to take this product on. I think it has lots of potential if it was accurate, but I don't think it is. So we're probably not going to take on the JBL Pro Scan, unfortunately. I also sold one to another customer exactly the same time. He's come back and he's pretty much said the same thing, that the tests are a little bit too variable. He's going to run testing on it a little bit longer. But the root thought on that is that it's just inaccurate, unfortunately. So I'm really disappointed, because I think that would be a fantastic product to have in store, but it's just not accurate. So if anyone is aware of any other sort of digital testing type things that are more accurate, please let me know, and I'll look at possibly getting them in. But today, John and I, we're going to talk about water testing and how important they are. As hobbyists that have been in the hobby for a very long time, often you don't need to test. Needs probably not the right word. Often we don't test because we have a fair idea of what's going on just by looking at our tanks. But as a new hobbyist or someone that's setting up a tank, I think they're almost 100% essential. After a while, you get the gist of what's going on in your tank and you know what's going on. But when you're learning, when you're getting into it, I think having a test kit on hand is so valuable. It's not funny. And same with when you're setting up a new tank. Anytime I set up a new tank, I'm still testing within the first 2 or 3 weeks until the tank actually matures. It can be cycled, but not be mature. In fact, it's very common your tank can be cycled and it's not mature. So I think testing it is very important all the way through. However, I do think sometimes when people over-test and they try and it complicates things a little bit as well. However, I think it's essential for us to be testing our water on a regular basis. So I'll just stop my thoughts for a second and we'll just answer some of these questions. What's the best way of testing for chlorine levels in tap water? You can get the HANA chlorine tests, which are incredibly accurate. That's a really good option. I know the Sarah dip tests have chlorine on them, but I don't think they're being brought in anymore. This one obviously had the chlorine test on it, but I don't think it's overly accurate. I'm not aware of any straight chlorine tests. You probably find some sort of pool testing kits. Whether or not they would be accurate enough to the amount that we would need, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's where I'd start. Definitely the HANA ones, which I've got one sitting over there, is really accurate. You get what you pay for with those tests, so they're worthwhile. And yeah, any product where you have to take a picture will have variables due to the camera limitations and lighting. I totally agree. My smartphone's all but brand new, a couple months old. When I purchased it, I made sure I purchased one that had a very intense camera because I like to take videos for the shop and photos and stuff like that. So that was one of the criteria. So I don't think my camera is the limitations. Equally, I went outside to a natural light as well as under the roof lights and stuff like that as well. So I know absolutely changing in variables, but I tried to eliminate as much of that as possible. My theory is, or I'm hoping that a digital lens can probably pick up slightly more colors that we in the human eye can't pick up. So they were going to be more accurate than what the test was going to be. That was what I was hoping. That was my theory, but I don't think it was quite right. And another water testing question: the solutions that you use from opening the bottles, how often do they need to be replaced to keep the accuracy of the testing? So that can lead on to the next thing I was going to talk about. I tested an expired API kit to the brand new one. The expired one expired about 2.5 years ago. So I considered that expired one about as accurate as what the JBL strips were. The nitrate showed up. The same amount of nitrate was kind of there. I did a couple of tests and it fluctuated as well. So I think the expiry is basically worth looking at. Most people will run through the nitrate before it expires anyway. But as a very quick gauge, if you've got an expired one, I think it will still do the job relatively well. Not incredibly well, but like I said, the expired one was showing up some nitrite still. Not as much as the brand new one, but it was showing up about as much as the JBL test strips. So take that as you will. Most people will have unless you've got a lot of aquariums, most people will run out of the nitrate before it's finished, before the ammonia and stuff like that. So, yeah. And yep, some local councils do give that information if you're looking for that, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be updated. They might do a chlorine dump pretty easily. Cool, what have we got there? Just email back our local Fort Worth Nature Centre and refuge to donate as much time as they need to get their local fish refuge park. Very cool. Very cool. Any other people that are involved in other sort of community related type activities to do with aquariums? That's very cool. Good stuff, Silver. So I think testing is very important when we're setting up tanks, no matter at what point we are. If you're doing a fishing cycle, which I really don't like, I think it's very important to be testing that. I know a lot of people poo-poo the idea of testing and they reckon it's a waste of money, but I think I disagree on that. Once your tank's mature, once you're established, once everything's sort of running through, that's when most people tend to not do water tests. But they're still very valuable to have on hand. So one of the guppy tanks out the back here, I was looking at some of the guppies. They had a bit of clamped fin going on. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So we did some water tests, and turns out we had a bit of ammonia in the water. So, without that, we just got some clamped fins. What do we got to do here? What's going on? What are we going to throw at it? But that gave us a wee base to work on. We've got some ammonia, so we fed a little bit less, did a couple of bigger water changes, and then we add a little bit of salt to try and counter that, and everything seems to have done its job from there. So I think they're very valuable to have on hand, even just a precautionary thing. I think it's almost irrelevant unless you're chasing numbers, you're trying to increase phosphates or decrease nitrates or whatever it is that you're trying to do for whatever reason or another. I don't think once your tank's established, it's worth testing on a regular basis, maybe every month, every 6 weeks or so, as opposed to every week. But definitely when you're setting them up and doing fishing cycles, which seems to be the craze at the moment everyone's into, absolutely worth having the test kits on hand and checking them. API is the gold standard, basically in New Zealand. I'm assuming it's the same around the world. I'm not opposed to the test strips. I think the test strips are fine. They just give a really good indication as long as they're accurate, and that's the main problem. And I think we all need to take into account that we're all working on hobbyist grade equipment here. We're not working on lab tech stuff here. So it is just hobbyist grade stuff. And so they're not all going to be accurate. As long as it's consistent and it's showing up in around about the same area, I think that's all we can kind of ask for. But when it's fluctuating, I think that's where the issues come into things. I saw that you did the set up the tank at the Rangi Ora High School. I think that's really cool. As they say, children is the future, and the more children that we can get involved in the hobby, the better it's going to be. I know, totally irrelevant to the hobby, but McDonald's has that worked out a very long time ago with the Happy Meals and the toys, and kids go to McDonald's with their parents, and it just ingrains this happiness, and they've just continued to have this cycle of customers for years and years and years and years and years. And And it works with any hobby as long as you can get kids in, get them involved nice and early. That keeps them interested, and then the hobby or whatever it is that you're talking about will just continue to grow and flourish for the rest of the time. So I think it's fantastic that you're doing that kind of stuff and putting your tank into the high school. Max is looking at a rare plant tank of mine and decided I need to fish out the duckweed. Yep, I think it's a good idea. I was looking at one of my tanks the other day thinking, these plants aren't growing so well, and I realized that the duckweed was blocking all the light and taking all the nutrients, so I'm doing the same thing. Duckweed's good, but it's also a real pain at the same time. And the giant growing wheel, I'm sure, absolutely love eating the duckweed. A friend of mine used to feed it canned peaches, which was quite fun to watch as well. So segments of peaches getting thrown in and just smashing them back. So they're a cool fish, just far too big. What have we got here? Have fun, George. Using water treatments like API, Aqua Essentials, or Prime after water changes, how long should I wait to do a test? Are you testing for chlorine, or are you testing for general stuff in your water? I would have thought that you would be using them after doing a water change. We just said there after water change, so you're likely to do the water test before you've done the water change. I don't tend to test too long after a water change. Do your water test. I've got an issue. Do a water change. Half an hour or so should be okay to have all the water running through. Gone through your filter, mixed up and stuff like that to see where your parameters are. I guess it depends on how high your parameters were before that. If your ammonia is through the roof, as an example, you've done your water change to try and lower it, and then you're checking again to see what it's at. About half an hour or so should be okay. Generally speaking, I don't normally test after I've done a water change after testing. Rehome. Yeah, how are you going with trying to? Are you going to keep it, or are you going to try and rehome it? I think it sounds like you've got a monster tank coming along on the way. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I've got for today. It's a little bit harder to have a conversation with yourself than what it was with John. So that was the base of what I had. I just wanted to talk about how we were looking at taking on the JBL strips, but they weren't accurate enough to take them on, so we most likely will not. And how I think it's fairly important to be testing our waters on a relatively regular basis when you're cycling, and then when you're a new hobbyist. And generally speaking, we sort of drop out a little bit as we get further into it, but there's still definitely a place for doing water change, doing water tests, even in mature tanks, because sometimes they don't just run the way you want them to run. But on the note of the guppies, hopefully I get a chance today and we'll be separating out the sunset, the leopard tails and the kois, all the young ones from the parents, and hopefully they're ready to sell in about 2 to 3 weeks or something along those lines. So if you're looking for some guppies, we shouldn't be too far away from some very, very nice ones. What's the most interesting fish you have gotten in recently? Emerald Eye Rasbora, which I sold all of them last night. I do like them. They're very nice looking fish. We've got some very nice Koi Galaxy betas in at the moment, although they've been here for a while. Me personally, fish that I've gotten for myself recently has been pretty low. Got some more big clown loaches coming in later this evening. I'm going to pick them up for the loach tank that I haven't built yet. We've been pretty limited in available stuff at the wholesalers at the moment. They're between imports. I think the 29th-ish is when the next import comes through, so hopefully there's some cool stuff. I got some very, very nice albino koi swordtails that came in earlier this week. Unfortunately, they're all males, but they are very, very nice. I've got some non-albino koi swordtails. I might speak to Maxi after this and see if we can work through genetics and what would happen if I was to cross a non-albino with an albino, because I've got female non-albinos, and see how that comes along, because they're absolutely stunning. We've got some nice chili raspora coming through. Available. I really like them. I think they're a cool little fish. And we've still got the glow light Danios, which again I really like. For some reason, no one likes them. They don't buy them. So I might see if I can set up a wee display tank for them, because I think they're pretty cool as well. Last week we got some Malupii dwarf Tanganyikan cichlids in for the Tanganyikan display tank. So we've got them in with Cynodontis periticola. So I think that's quite a cool little combination there. We've got about half a dozen or so of the Malupii. I'm going to weed that out to most likely just appear when they start spawning, because that's what they do. They're angry little buggers. But they're a nice bright orange colour, so I think it's kind of cool. I'm umming whether or not they were the right fish for a display tank, because there's only a couple fish in that tank, but they are very bright and very colourful and very cool, so hopefully they go all right. But yeah, I haven't really had any new fish in recently. I guess, like, I bought the green fire tetras out from the back and the sunset platies out from the back, so I'm enjoying them a lot more now, because they're in my eye for the best part of the day. And they're looking really cool, and I'm really enjoying that. And people are coming to the shop and saying that they like them and how cool they are. So I'm enjoying that. But they're not a new fish for me in the shop. They've been here for a while, but you're now seeing them under some nice lights and a semi-planted tank and stuff like that. They're looking really good. So they're definitely the ones that have been taking my attention at the moment. Glow light Danios are really cool. Cool. Okay. So unless we've got some more questions, we might call it a day. Jump onto the blog that we've got. If you don't know where you can find it on the website, it's under Aqua Journal right at the bottom. I think we've got about 20 pages worth of blogs there, so I've got a pretty decent library resource of information there if reading is your thing. But yeah. On that note, I'm going to go. I'm going to contemplate doing this bibliography. Try and work out how many hours worth of work I've got to put into it before it might actually be worthwhile. We'll see how we go. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for joining us. If you haven't yet, please do that whole like thing. Much appreciated. It gets to shared out to more people. And we'll see you next week when we have the Garden of Eden on for our Finatics Friday Coffee Date. So have a good one, team. Happy fish keeping. Catch you later.